Welcome to this FarmDoc webinar's presentation. This is John Newton. Today I'll be presenting Introduction and Strategic Implementation of the Dairy Producer Margin Protection Program. Our format will be approximately 30-minute presentation followed by 30-minute question and answers based on questions and comments submitted by webinar attendees. We will select questions from those submitted. Please submit questions using the texting window on your screen. Presentation materials are available on the downloads page at farmdoc.illinois.edu/webinars. You can download a PDF of the slides now, and a video will be available tomorrow. Again, please submit questions during the presentation. An important disclaimer, these are my interpretations of the 2014 dairy title, and they may vary from the final rules published by USDA Farm Service Agency. FSA regulations on the 2014 dairy title are expected on or before September 1st, 2014. The 2014 Dairy Farm Bill provisions extend the Dairy Forward Pricing Program, which would be Class 2 through Class 4 milk. Remaining also is the Livestock Gross Margin Insurance Program for dairy cattle, and we also keep the Dairy Price Support Program, also known as the Dairy Cliff. The 2014 Farm Bill repeals the Milk Income Loss Contract, which is the existing Dairy Safety Net Program. It also repeals the Dairy Export Assistance Program and the Dairy Product Price Support Program. New in the Farm Bill is a voluntary Dairy Producer Margin Protection Program. The Margin Protection Program provides an income over feed cost margin protection available from $4 to $8 in 50-cent increments. Also new in the Farm Bill is a Dairy Product Donation Program. This program will purchase dairy products when the income over feed cost margin falls below $4 per hundredweight over a consecutive 2-month period. Finally, the 2014 Farm Bill includes provisions which allow California producers to petition USDA for a federal milk marketing order. It includes the entire state of California and also allows them to bring in some form of their unique quota system. I'll have a FarmDoc Daily post on a California federal milk marketing order tomorrow. The Margin Protection Program, again, is a voluntary program based on income over feed cost margins. It's designed to protect dairymen from severe downturns in the milk price, rising livestock feed prices, or a combination of both. It pays indemnities when the average difference between the USDA national all milk price and a feed ration index falls below a farmer selected coverage level. Again, these coverage levels range from $4 to $8 per hundredweight in 50-cent increments. The margin is averaged over a consecutive 2-month period to determine indemnity payments. These consecutive 2-month periods are January, February, March, April, all the way to November, December. What this means is that a February-March margin period is not captured to determine your indemnity payments. It's only the consecutive 2-month periods of January, February, all the way to November, December. And finally, one of the most important pieces of the Margin Protection Program is there are no eligibility constraints or payment limitations. So dairy farmers across the U.S. of all sizes are provided an option to get government safety net coverage. Important elements of the Margin Protection Program include the actual dairy production margin given by the following formula. Here we have the U.S. all milk price minus a feed ration. The feed ration includes the National Agricultural Statistics Service corn price, the Ag Marketing Service Central Illinois soybean meal price, and again the NASS alfalfa hay price. These three elements combine to form the feed ration. The feed ration is subtracted from the USDA all milk price to determine the income over feed cost margin. Again, this is a national average formula which cannot be customized. LGM dairy is a customizable formula. The second element is the actual dairy production history. This is the max calendar year production over 2011, 12, or 13. The highest milk marketings over the calendar year will form the basis for how indemnity payments are paid to dairy producers participating in the program. Your assigned production history is revised annually by the USDA based on U.S. growth in milk production. There are provisions in the Farm Bill that allow for calculation of production history for new entrants, such that they would extrapolate existing milk production over a calendar year basis to determine what your production history should be. Finally, any payments made from the margin protection program are made on this production history. The production history is divided equally into 6 different 2-month periods, such that it's not actually based on actual farm milk production. This is important because in both House and Senate passed bills, it was based on the minimum of your production history or your actual milk marketings over the consecutive 2-month period. That provision is not included in this dairy title. Each year, farmers are going to have to make some key decisions. They'll have to choose a coverage percentage, and that is 25% to 90% of their production history in 5% increments. Next, they'll have to choose a coverage level. They can choose $4 to $8 coverage per hundredweight in 50-cent increments. The higher the coverage percentage and the higher the coverage level provides more effective margin protection coverage. In order to participate in the program, farmers must pay premium rates. An important feature is that the premiums are fixed for the life of the Farm Bill. This means that it will cost the same to participate today as it will in 2018, absent the 25% discount in the first 2 years of the program. So per hundredweight for $4 coverage, it's free. Farmers just have to pay a $100 administrative fee each year to participate. As you can see in the table on the right, the premiums increase with additional coverage. It's important to note that for above 4 million pounds of production, the premium rates increase significantly above 650. You'll see in the box on the right, I've highlighted the 29-cent and 83-cent premium per hundredweight for production history covered above 4 million pounds. That's a 54-cent difference in premium rates while only providing an additional 50 cents in coverage. Another important consideration with respect to these premium rates is that they're not actuarially fair. These premiums do not adjust to reflect the market milk and feed prices each year. As a result of these fixed premiums, strategy in the margin protection program is critically important. There are several strategies that dairy farmers may employ, one of which includes consistently employing a coverage strategy. For example, always buying 650 coverage at 90% coverage percent, or always opting for the $4 coverage at 90% coverage. This involves a risk-reward trade-off. And I'll provide an example of how the risk and reward may vary based on the coverage levels. Here we have a dashboard showing the income over feed cost margin from 2000 all the way to 2013. You can see that without margin protection coverage, the average income over feed cost during this period was $8.26, given on the right-hand side of the dashboard. The variance of the net income over feed cost margin, again without coverage, when you switch coverage levels, for example, if we move to a $4 coverage option, you see that the consecutive 2-month indemnity payments come in the orange bars on top of the income over feed cost margin. what we see is that these $4 margin protection coverage has reduced the variance of the net income over fee cost margin from 594 to 550, but it's also increased the average margin over this time period from 826 to 831. Here the risk-reward trade-off is you have positive returns and a lower variance. You can select higher coverage options, as we see here. Moving to a 650 coverage option provides even greater coverage. Again, the gaps here in 2009, 2012 are filled in by some of the indemnity payments that the program would pay. The variance of the net income over fee cost margin drops to $4 per hundredweight. Without coverage, it was $5.94. And the average income over fee cost margin has increased from $8.26 to $8.47. Now these numbers I'm showing represent a 4 million pound production history, so approximately 185 cows, and the coverage percentage is 90%. We can adjust the coverage percentage to see that lower coverage percentage would provide less margin protection benefits. Let's move back to 90%. Let's look at the $8 coverage option. The $8 coverage option provides the most margin protection for a dairyman. In this example, most of the catastrophic margin declines are filled in by indemnity payments, such that the variance of the net income over fee cost margin has dropped by nearly 60%, and the average income over fee cost margin, including indemnity payments as well as any premiums seen below here in the negative portion of the axis, it's positive, 852. So this demonstrates that a consistent strategy could in fact increase your first moment returns and reduce your variance. This is for a dairy with a production history of 4 million pounds, and then I caution that this is backward looking, so had this program actually been in effect, things may have been somewhat different. But this does give you an example of the risk reduction potential with the margin protection program. Let's go back to no coverage. Now we have no coverage, and let's look at a larger dairy with a production history of, well, how about 20 million pounds? Again, the variance is the same and the average is the same. However, remember that the premium rates are different for production history greater than 4 million pounds. We add $4 coverage for this dairy. $4 coverage again is free with the $100 administrative fee. The average increases to 831, and the variance is somewhat unchanged, 594 to 550. When we move to 650 coverage for a dairy with 20 million pounds of production history, we see that the variance, again, has decreased, and the average net income over fee cost margin has gone from 826 to 832, a marginal increase. Still, we see positive first moment returns and a reduction in the variance. Moving to $8 coverage for a dairy with this 20 million pound production history, we see, importantly, that the premiums are much larger for these dairies, given in this negative portion of the graph. The variance, again, has been reduced by approximately 60%, but importantly, the average net income over fee cost margin has actually gone down from 826 to 789. Now this is your traditional risk-reward trade-off, in that for reduced risk, you must pay to reduce such risk. The reason why the average net income over fee cost margin is lower is due to the higher premium structure for larger dairies. Let's summarize the results of our dashboard exercise. Consistent risk management for a 4 million pound dairy or 4 million pound production history At $4 coverage with 90% coverage, it's catastrophic only. It's not much help. Your variance is reduced a little bit, and your average income over fee cost margin with indemnities only increases by 5 cents. However, 650 coverage, again consistent coverage, no change in the strategy, can reduce the income over fee cost variance by as much as 33%. Again, this is historical, it's not forward-looking. And your average income over fee cost with indemnities less premium is higher. The same with the $8 coverage option over the 2000 to 2013 period. So this is a risk-reward trade-off. Additionally, it has the potential to outperform futures markets. Generally, through hedging, you reduce the variance of your profit by paying some sort of premium. For a larger dairy, it's very similar in that $4 catastrophic coverage offers very little help. Only in times when margins are catastrophically low would you expect to receive an indemnity payment. The 650 coverage offers margin protection. It will reduce the variance in your income over fee cost margin over time. But we see with the $8 coverage option, it has a reduction in your variance of your net income over fee cost margin, but due to the higher premium structure, the average income over fee cost margin over the historical period actually decreased. Again, that's your risk-reward trade-off. And this is a similar risk-reward option as seen in futures markets and other risk management tools. So the margin protection program operates very much like a risk management program. And producers can use a consistent strategy to manage the income over fee cost margin risk for their dairy. If you weren't going to use this program consistently, another strategy that you could employ would be to make a different decision each year. You could change your coverage level and change your coverage percentage each year. And the reason why this could be beneficial is because the milk and feed market prices are constantly changing. Yet the premium rates are fixed for the life of the farm bill. Now, changing your coverage each year involves risk. You could, during a particular year, opt for the lowest level of coverage and be unprotected during an unanticipated margin decline. So changing your coverage each year is a risky alternative. Let's review. This is for demonstration purposes only. What we're going to do is we're going to look back over the historical time period using the observed all milk, corn, soybean meal, and hay prices. I caution that if the program had been in effect, milk and feed prices may have been the optimal strategy. When you look at the prices over this period, when margins are bad, you want to buy up coverage. When margins are good, you want to buy less coverage. Us economists like to refer to this as a corner solution to the optimization problem. These are all potential decision points that a farmer would need to make margin protection decisions. So here at the beginning of 2009, a farmer could make a decision as to what level of margin protection coverage to purchase. The same with 2010, 2011, 2012, and 13, and then here's a 2014 decision with my forecast laid over it. What would have been the decisions made with hindsight? This table presents the net benefits per hundredweight of the margin protection program. This is for a dairy with a 4 million pound production history at a 90% coverage level, again in dollars per hundredweight. I caution that this is for demonstration only. Had the program been in effect, the milk and feed prices observed over this time period would have been different. But let's review. For this dairy with a 4 million pound production history, the maximum net benefit during 2008 would have been with $4 coverage. During 2009, the maximum benefit would have come with $8 coverage at $267 per hundredweight. 2010 and 11, the dairy would opt for the lowest level of coverage at $4 per hundredweight, and then coming back in 2012 and 2013 would opt for the maximum level of coverage, $8 per hundredweight. In each case, 2012 providing an average net return of $1.98, 2013 providing an average net return of 93 cents per hundredweight. Again, this is for a 4 million pound production history. Different production histories would provide different results. So over the time period, the optimal decision points, we have $4 in 2008, $8 in 2009, $4 in 2010, $4 in 2011, $8 in 2012 and 13, and then $4 in 2014. The fact is, we're not clueless on what margins are going to do. We can use CME futures markets to forecast the income over feed cost margins. So when you make your coverage decision, you can buy more coverage when forecast margins are at or below the coverage levels and potential indemnities exceed premium and administrative fees. You want to buy the maximum coverage level and coverage percentage. Note, this is a very expensive strategy. You'd buy less coverage when forecasted margins are above coverage levels and potential indemnities do not exceed participation cost. For example, 2014. You'd buy less coverage, but you'd keep the coverage percentage at 90%. The reason for this is $4 coverage doesn't include a premium. It only has a $100 administrative fee, so $4 at 90% would cost the same as $4 at 25%. So you'd want to keep your coverage percentage relatively high. Note, this is an inexpensive alternative. It doesn't carry a premium, but it is risky if margins unanticipatedly decline. So let's look at the futures market at the beginning of several years. At the beginning of 2008, the forecasted annual income over feed cost margin for the year was $8.74. The strategy under this scenario would be to pick $4 coverage. At the beginning of 2009, we were already in a recession. The forecasted annual income over feed cost margin was $5.15. So if you were allowed to make a decision at this point in time, the optimal decision would be to pick $8 coverage. During 2010, the annual average income over feed cost margin was $9 per hundredweight. So your optimal strategy would be to pick $4 coverage. 2011, the annual average margin indicated by futures markets was $6.86. The strategy here would be to pick $8 coverage. The strategies I've reviewed are all for a 4 million pound production history dairy. 2012, the average annual margin was $7.70. Your strategy would be to pick $8 coverage. Here, that's a result of nearby indemnity payments at the beginning of the year. The nearby payments would be high enough to cover any potential premiums through the rest of the year. So $8 coverage would have been the optimal decision for 2012. Moving to 2013, the annual average margin was $6.98. This is post a 2012 drought, so you have an idea of what the 2000 was, and yet you could buy insurance for the coming year. Your strategy under this scenario would be to pick $8 coverage. At the beginning of 2014, the annual average margin was $10.16. So if a decision is to be made at the end of this year as to what coverage option to buy for a dairy, the strategy may well be $4 coverage. Now, as the decision date approaches, an updated forecast would provide a better estimation of which coverage level would be optimal. And again, these results will vary based on production history. So let's evaluate our forecasting technique with the historical prices. Again, this is for demonstrative purposes only. Historical prices would have been different had this program been in effect. But we see in 2008, the optimal coverage level from the model suggests $4 coverage. That was the right choice. In 2009, the optimal coverage was $8. Again, that was the right choice. In 2010, the optimal coverage would have been $4, and it was the right choice. 2011, the model would have indicated $8 coverage. However, realized prices indicate that that was the wrong choice. The dairy would have likely over-insured. That does provide risk management for that dairy over 2011 in the event of an unanticipated margin decline. However, looking back over historical milk prices, $4 would have been the best option. In 2012 and 13, the model indicated $8 coverage, and that was the right choice. In 2014, the model indicates $4 coverage, and we do not know yet if that would be the right choice. Strategy matters in determining performance of margin protection program. Anticipating the risk environment can help to maximize returns, but this carries additional risk. These are two different strategies that we've reviewed. The one strategy is to buy consistent coverage to manage your risk, and the other strategy is to move your coverage option up or down based on the anticipated risk environment. In order to make these decisions, you should first examine how well the margin protection program correlates to your farm margin. Because this program is a national program based on national prices, there's going to be some basis on the milk price, the corn price, soybean meal price, and your hay prices. Examining the basis on your farm relative to the national program will help you to determine how well this program will work for you. The second consideration is what level of risk is acceptable. Perhaps you feel better with a consistent strategy. But are you comfortable changing coverage based on the anticipated risk environment? If the answer to a consistent strategy is a coverage option like 650, which costs less than a dime per hundredweight, is a reasonable alternative. However, you can maximize returns by changing your coverage each year from $4 to $8 per hundredweight, or anywhere in between may provide positive net returns as well. It just depends on your production history and how much the program is going to cost. For the larger dairies, paying the higher premium rates, a consistent strategy may reduce risk, but it actually could be net income over feed cost margin reducing. This is due to the higher tier premiums. So for larger dairies paying the higher premium rates, strategy is very important in participating in the program. The margin protection program can provide revenue support during multi-year losses in farm equity, for example, 2012 and 2013. And it allows dairymen to buy coverage at levels that the futures market may not provide. For example, at the beginning of 2009, you could not hedge an income over feed cost margin of $8 per hundredweight. The coverage, the premiums, may be cheaper than LGM dairy, futures, and/or options. So there is some concern that it could draw liquidity from these markets. And then finally, we know that the premiums are not actuarially fair as they're not based on market milk and feed prices. Rather, they're fixed for the life of the farm bill. There are some unanswered questions with respect to the margin protection program. For example, the sign-up deadline compared to the coverage start date. In all of our examples, we looked at the sign-up date at the beginning of the year. However, a report yesterday at Dairy Today indicated that a 90 to 120 day gap may be possible. that would change your price expectation and change your optimal coverage decision. Several posts on FarmDoc Daily where we review the strategy with respect to the margin protection program, and you can find those articles on my author page listed below. The second question is whether this is a 5-year or annual participation commitment. This is really important for folks who use LGM dairy. If it's a 5-year commitment, then you cannot use LGM dairy over the 5 years. The Farm Bill prohibits dairymen from using both LGM dairy and the margin protection program. However, if it's an annual participation decision, a dairyman could choose each year whether to participate in LGM dairy or purchase margin protection program benefits. I had a webinar with Dr. Brian Gold at Wisconsin several weeks ago where we reviewed this topic. The third question is, how will premiums be calculated? There are questions with respect whether the first 4 million pounds covered or the first 4 million pounds of production history receive the premium discount. That is a question we yet do not know. A very important issue is, how will premiums be paid? Will they be paid at the beginning of the year? Will they be paid bi-monthly? Or perhaps will they be paid at the end of the year and deducted from any indemnity check? There's no doubt that premiums paid at the end of the year and deducted out of the indemnity check would not pose the same cash flow issue as paying premiums at the beginning of the year. Finally, how will new operations be treated under the program versus people that purchase existing dairies that may be already enrolled in the program? These are all important questions that FSA regulations will provide additional clarity on. And again, we expect those regulations sometime on or before September 1st, 2014. What we've seen today is my interpretation of how the Dairy Margin Protection Program will operate. Once the FSA regulations come out, some of the things in this webinar may in fact change. So it's important to review the FSA regulations to receive that clarity. But what we will do is, once the final rules are known, we'll have a web-based decision aid to help dairymen make the decision on the margin protection program. Similar to the forecast we presented for 2008 to 2013, the online decision tool will use CME futures prices for milk and feed every single day to update a 12-month income over feed cost margin. Farmers can then simulate from this margin to determine what their expected benefits of the margin protection program at various coverage levels and coverage percentages may be. This will provide individualized net expected benefits for every dairy using the online program. Pay attention, as this decision tool and information pertaining to the decision tool will be available at dairymarkets.org. Please continue to submit questions during this part of the webinar. I can be reached at the following email address, jcnewt@illinois.edu, or you can 10 Ag Econ. You can visit the download page at farmdoc.illinois.edu to download a PDF of this webinar. This concludes the presentation portion of our event. We'll now move to the Q&A session. Please continue to submit questions or comments during this time. The first question: under the modified dairy product, am I correct in my understanding that the USDA does not have to take all product offered, as in the previous system, only what the Secretary wants to purchase? The Farm Bill doesn't define how the dairy product purchase program will operate. It merely says that the Secretary of Agriculture shall purchase dairy products for immediate delivery. It doesn't identify a quantity or product type. Question: what is the net income over feed cost impacts after subtracting insurance cost? Is it fair to compare the $4 coverage impacts versus the $8 coverage without including the premium cost? The graph included in the presentation does include the premium cost. Question, are you sure producers will have an annual choice about coverage? I do not see this stated in the dairy title. It is indeed in the dairy title that producers will have an annual decision. Will FSA offer a decision-making tool to assist participants at the time of sign-up? At this point in time, I do not have the answer to that question. We do know that the Farm Bill includes $3 million for web-based decision aids. This could be one of those online decision aids sponsored by the USDA. What is the final date to make your margins level decision each year? Again, the FSA rules have not been released, so this is an unanswered question at this time. Question, since payments are based on production history, is there a lower limit of actual production that has to occur to receive the full indemnity? That's a very good question, and one that FSA regulations will likely clarify. But at this point in time, we do not know the answer to that. Here's a question. Given the degree of accuracy in which you feel a producer can estimate his or her optimal coverage level annually, this would, should, threaten the actuarial viability of the program. Thoughts? That is exactly the point. It does threaten the actuarial fairness of the program if a producer can estimate their optimal coverage level. I don't fault you at all for your observations to question the viability. One aspect that makes the crop insurance program seemingly viable is the wide geography that would seemingly help reduce underwriting risks of catastrophic drought. Similarly, the annual repricing based on volatility in commodity prices would seem to eliminate the gaming of the system you imply is possible with income over fee cost margin coverage. Thank you. Things that they could do, and we actually mentioned it in the webinar, is that there could be a gap in the coverage date. So if you have a 90 to 120 day gap, you're less able to accurately forecast the margins that far out, and that may limit the ability to adversely game the program to one's financial advantage. Let's see, the next question. The premiums you talked about, are those for 1 month or 1 year? The premium rates per hundredweight are multiplied by the production history. So in essence, it is both a monthly premium and can be used to determine the annual premium. Question, can you adjust the percentage coverage each sign-up period? Yes, you can. During each registration or annual decision process, you can change the coverage percentage and the coverage level. Again, the coverage percentage goes from 25 to 90%, and the coverage level goes from $4 to $8 per hundredweight in 50-cent increments. The next question. In making the forecasts at the start of each year for the period 2008 to 2013, how did you forecast alfalfa prices, since they are not traded on the board? And what did you use for corn and soybean meal? The board's prices straight up? Question mark. That's a very good question. There is a difference between the USDA published prices and the CME board prices, and then alfalfa doesn't trade on the board. So I had to use regression techniques to transform the CME prices into USDA announced prices. While it's not a direct one-to-one conversion, it does provide the ability to make a reasonably reliable income over fee cost margin forecast for the year. If you'd like more information about the regression techniques used, feel free to email me and I'll direct you to one of the papers online. Is there a site to see daily or weekly income over feed cost margins to follow? And where can we find the all milk price? The prices used in the program are published in the NASS Ag Prices Report. There are both preliminary and revised prices published in the report. So you can go to the report on the NASS website to find the USDA reported all milk price, corn, and alfalfa hay prices. The soybean meal price reported by AMS is available on the AMS Feedstuff portal. If you'd like links to any of those two sites, feel free to email me and I'll be glad to pass it along. Can a dairy producing If so, does the 4 million pound level get used all in a couple months, or does it have to be spread over 12 months? That's a very good question. With respect to if your production history is 20 million pounds, can you only buy 4 million pounds of coverage? Once the FSA regulations become known, there'll be additional clarity on how exactly your coverage pounds are determined from the production history. Next question. Well, this is a good one. How will the risk management agency be underwriting this program? Will they be offsetting risk on the CME? This program is a Title I commodity program, and it will be administered by the Farm Service Agency, not the Risk Management Agency. Those of you familiar with LGM Dairy know that RMA oversees that program and uses a rating methodology using corn, soybean meal, and milk prices from the board to determine the premiums during each sign-up event. No such rating methodology exists for this program, and it will be administered by the Farm Service Agency. So no, RMA will not be underwriting the program. Question, LGM Dairy, will it continue to be available through private insurers? The answer to that question is yes. This program does not eliminate LGM Dairy, so it should remain available. Here's another good question. If your goal is to maximize the net payment from the program, does it ever make sense to insure less than 90% of your milk? Since the coverage percentage enters in to the net benefit program as a linear variable, so it's a linear transformation of the net benefit, it actually doesn't. So when you observe that there are positive net expected benefits, you can continue to improve those net expected benefits by buying additional coverage all the way up to 90%. So from an economic perspective, using an optimization technique, no, it does not make sense to insure less than 90%. However, in reality, it may make sense as dairymen have cash constraints, and if you buy coverage less than 90%, it will change your premiums. Question, are there coverage limitations for larger dairies as we've seen with LGM Dairy? The answer to that question is no, and that's exactly right. The program was designed to not discriminate against dairies based on the size of their operation. So any dairy in the U.S., regardless of size, regardless of adjusted gross income, non-farm, can participate in this program. That's not the same, as the audience member pointed out, with LGM Dairy, and it was not the same with the MILC program. But this program is designed to work effectively for all dairies in the United States. That's why it's a national program using national prices of all milk and feed. The next question, does the margin program become effective for 2014 or 2015? That really depends on when FSA introduces the program. It's certainly possible that FSA could publish the rules and introduce the program and it's effective this year. I would suspect, and again this is just my interpretation, that since the Farm Bill included 2014 premium rates in the language, that it was their intent to have the program available for dairymen sometime during the year. The next question. The Understanding Dairy Markets website provides daily forecasts of the income over feed cost margin over the next year. That is correct. Dr. Gould's website does provide daily forecasts of the income over feed cost margin. And we're working with Dr. Brian Gould to make a uniform forecast using the technique that I've developed in my dissertation and have it hosted on the dairymarkets.org website so that both websites provide the same information to dairymen consistently. Dr. Gould uses a different technique to forecast the margin. When I spoke with him, I believe he uses a constant basis level. The next question, could you just use the milk futures to help make an annual decision? The answer to that question is of course. You can develop your own price expectations throughout the year using futures or using some other form of reduced form model to forecast annual income over feed cost margins to make your decision. The technique I've demonstrated in today's webinar is one of many techniques that producers may use to try to determine what level calendar year. Here's the next question. Can a dairy that is shipping 20 million pounds split the herd into smaller herd sizes and ownership so 5 owners could receive 4 million pounds protection at no cost to the operation, but their peers will have to pay the higher premiums? That's a pretty convoluted methodology to try to circumvent the design of the program, so I'm not really sure about that one. In the language, the secretaries provided authority to prevent people from abusing the program. And so in my opinion, that would be a way in which they're really trying to circumvent how this program should operate. But once FSA rules are known, a creative lawyer may be able to help a dairyman figure that out. This is a really good question. Do you foresee a greater decrease in purchases of milk futures because of this? And what effect does this pose to purchase milk contract prices? It's tough to say what will happen to the futures market because of this program. In talking to people, some think that this could reduce liquidity. It's a substitute risk management tool to futures and forward contracts, but some people think it can help dairymen begin to move into the risk management arena. So for years, dairy farmers across the U.S. have had a direct payment program as their safety net. And the idea here is to introduce them to the concept of risk management. So will this reduce futures markets? I don't know. We'll have to wait and see. It potentially could, or it could introduce to more dairymen the concept of risk management such that more people are using risk management tools. And if that's the case, then maybe futures markets and this program can thrive side by side. Question, what type and how often will policyholders have to report production? Until the FSA regulations are released, the answer. I would imagine that it would be similar to how dairy farmers have to report production for the MILC program, but again, I'm just anticipating. Question, how will multiple dairies with common ownership be viewed? As a single large dairy or multiple dairies? I believe the language in the Farm Bill views these multi-dairy operations as one dairy participating in the program. Again, until the FSA rules are released, we don't know the final answer. And I keep saying that until the FSA rules are released because that's very important. Everything that we've done today in the webinar is all speculation from reading the Farm Bill. Until the FSA rules are published and this program is active, we don't know how exactly everything will work. there are any other questions, please submit them now. Okay. Well, thank you everyone for participating. This event is now concluded. Please check our website for a recorded version of this event. We appreciate your participation, and please join us again and visit our website for an updated event schedule.